There's a saying that goes, you can't polish a turd, but you can roll it in glitter. Cyberpunk 2077 released to much fanfare, and mainly for the wrong reasons, but it's had more patches than I've had police warnings, and so I thought it was worth a modern day review. So the question is, people, have they polished this turd, or did they simply roll it in glitter? Let's find out, shall we? Welcome back, all of you, to the Cockney Gamer gang, and indeed returning gang members. As always, me and the boys appreciate your support. Now, moving forward, Cyberpunk will be called Cyberspunk, simply because there are times when I play this and walk away due to the sheer wet nature of my pants, and that's because it looks simply glorious and not because of the cringe-induced sex scenes that are about, but more on that later, people. One of the immediate questions with Cyberspunk is that when you take away the simply incredible graphics, are you left with much of a game? To find out, I'm going to dissect and deliver you all an analysis of gameplay, sound, graphics, the usual stuff that I get into, so buckle into your belts and let's get on with it, shall we? So, gameplay then. Cyberspunk is about a dystopian city where the place and city you converse in is called Night City. Give the scriptwriter a pay rise for that one. In it you control a character named V, and you get to decide how you start your life with 3 options laid out before you, from being a street cretin, a desert rat who lives in a caravan, or a corporate twat. But shock horror, people, the difference lasts all of about 5 minutes, and eventually you'll be on the same bloody story arc as everybody else. Now, straight up, you can design your character to your own reasoning. So obviously, if you are a bird, you select to have big melons, or if you're a bloke, you make him have a big twang. So far so good, right? Well, as you progress through the game, you get to upgrade your chosen character, because in the world of Cyberspunk, humans are able to upgrade themselves with cyber implants, so robotic eyes that may have better aim, or brain implants that give you all sorts of advantages in a world full of tech. Now, these implants you'll collect and farm along the way, and with that you'll find little guns and whatnot, but the most interesting part of all is your ability to hack a load of shit, anonymous style. So, with your implants, you can hack cameras to see where the enemies are, or hack the environment to drop objects on people, or maybe hack the bloody people themselves, causing their own implants to explode and their head getting splattered. It's magnificent, and the gunplay itself ain't too bad either, with a whole raft of options to pick from. Now, if what I explain sounds like fun, then you'd be right, because it bloody is good fun, and sadly this game got so much hatred for so many other reasons that even the good parts were hated upon too. But hindsight is a wonderful thing, just as Frank the Mank found out when he snitched on Johnny. The issues arise in Cyberpunk with the challenge the game gives you. You see, realistically, you don't need to go stealth into a mission, and you don't need to take a situation differently with multiple hacks of an enemy system. You could play that way, of course, and the option's there, but almost 10 times out of 10 you can just bowl in John Wick style with a shotgun and blast your way through the whole fucking level, no issue. A big problem they have is that they can't seem to fix the coppers, or the lack of them, should I say, and that really detracts away from the challenge. It's just like real life, sometimes you just can't get the cops where you want them to be. Is that right, boys and girls? There ain't no car chases or moments of, oh, better not do that, or I'm going to get a slap from Percy Pig. The issue is that the police spawn in pretty close when you do a naughty, but they can also be lost in just as quick time too. It's hard to believe that they didn't really think of this game mechanic in more detail during the development. The missions themselves are also so-so. I didn't really give a shit, if I'm honest with you. I mean, it was a pretty average story. Given they went big dog and got in Mr. Keanu Reeves himself, you would hope for something quite special here that keeps you hooked. Actually, I found more enjoyment out of the side missions than I did the main one. Now, thankfully, there's a huge number of missions, and they are pretty varied with a big story arc onto themselves. I've already done a load of time in here, 50 hours plus I'd say, and I'm still coming across lots of things. So longevity is definitely here with Cyberpunk. Now, things have been added to the game through patches, such as the ability for more customization, feeling like you own your own apartment as an example, as things can now be changed up and whatnot. However, here's the thing, right? Customization is still one of the biggest bugbears that I have. You see, the game was clearly made for a horny teenager who's discovered that his right hand can do wonders in the form of a Tommy tank. And for you Americans, that means jerking off. And so with that, there is plenty of content for him in Cyberpunk as it oozes sex appeal. And that's just the genre, right? There's nothing wrong with that. That's all gravy for me. And to be fair, the character models of NPCs I think are pretty good. They do look both threatening and sexy at the same time. It's okay, people, I'm a big boy, I can appreciate the vibe they're going for here. The issue is when you come to customise your own character, you will invariably pick clothing and items that make your character the best they can be in terms of the perks they offer, right? Well, the way they've created the clothing makes you look like you've just come off an 18-hour flight wearing your tracksuit bottoms and hoodie sweater because you know you don't need to impress anybody, and it's perfectly acceptable, isn't it, to look like a bucket of shit on an airplane ride. And no matter what you do, unless you mod the PC version of course, your attire is always going to make you look like a piece of shit transatlantic flyer. And so you have this story that you don't really care for, followed by a character that you don't really care for, dressed in clothing made for the Rugrats. The UI itself is also an issue for me. It never feels simple. In particular, when upgrading a gun and working out which is best and what to dismantle, it can feel cumbersome. It just doesn't feel intuitive at all, and the manner in which you go on a map and select missions or discover what to do next, whilst it's vastly improved, still doesn't feel right. Nothing here mentioned is game breaking, of course. Instead, I'd say more of a pain in the arse. Speaking of arse, let's talk about the sex scene, shall we? For a game that is baked in sex appeal and does its best to keep to mature themes, why do we have these cringe-inducing little sex moments? And more to the point, why as a game industry do we struggle to tackle sex in mature ways, but we can tackle other bloody big issues with ease? We do a pretty alright job on other topics, I feel, and they're quite good at creating emotional stories such as The Last of Us, Red Dead Redemption, or the Mass Effect trilogy. But sex scenes? God no, and Cyberpunk is no different in a world where it has such interesting people to meet. So, given my lacklustre feeling of the characters in the game, who is the best character in Cyberpunk? Well, it's Night City itself, that's what. You lot can have that little philosophical quote for free, and I'll explain that and more as we actually go through the graphics. Now, a little secret for you, I am playing Cyberpunk on the new Alienware QD OLED Ultra Wide, and it's powered by Johnny Two Shoes 3080. He found me off a lorry, and let me tell you, boys and girls, it's bloody sight to behold it is. I've played this with the next gen update on PS5, and yes, it's also very, very good and quite a looker. But if there was ever a time to show why ray tracing on PC is so special, then this is it. Light bounces off and reflects against surfaces in ways that are simply magical, with textures and materials taken into account. There are even reflections bouncing off other reflections, and how coloured lights can mix to create new light colours. The neon signs in HDR are brilliant, and whilst yes, it does require a punchy GPU to get to where it needs to get to, it's the sort of game that even in 5 years will be considered and looked upon fondly as the new age of what is possible with hardware. But why the ray tracing is remarkable is the success of the city itself and how it was created. Honestly, people, I feel like they must have hired some kind of architect to build this game, because it's all so believable and admirable. Night City works because it is both dense and intricate in its street layout and alleyways, but also in its verticalness. And that's the only way I can explain it. Like, bridges and ramps cross over as they should, and the lakes and rivers look naturally placed, and generally speaking, the whole world just feels like a genuine city, and for my money feels closer to somewhere like Chicago, the home of that legend Al Capone, God rest his soul. Now, of course, not all buildings can be entered, that would be a silly thing to argue for, but the ones that can be entered feel real, with elevators being a necessity and windows and balconies giving a lovely little vista of the city. And I love the way there are these little areas of industry, or little hot zones of bars and debauchery, or a little marketplace to be discovered. and it's all crafted with such love and attention, with lights being placed in particular areas on a wall to make sure that the ray tracing shines, and it just drips and oozes with style and character. And so I stand by the point, the best character you meet in Cyberpunk is the city itself. It truly is magnificent, and no other game has done anything like it. It is sometimes just a joy to walk around the place and take it all in. Sound wise, it's pretty standard, I guess. I will say I think the voice acting is actually pretty poor, and if I'm honest, I'm not actually that impressed with Mr. Keanu Reeves, unlike other reviews I read which praised him as some bloody messiah. Love him as an actor, boys and girls, I can't deny it, but you can tell he kinda is in a studio just reading lines. Likewise, it feels at times the Keanu Reeves we get here is the one from the Matrix films versus the Johnny they want us to have. I don't know, it just didn't work for me, and likewise your own character has a pretty shoddy script, and the melodramatic moments are just cringy in their delivery. So the script is pretty poor. The music I actually quite like and goes with the whole vibe. It cuts in at the right moments and ramps up where needed, and likewise the sound effects that happen, whether it's the form of hacking, gunshots, general street ambient sounds, all that shit sounds punchy, provides clear direction of what they are and where they're coming from. So everything is dripping in a techno style funk to help that vibe of Cyberpunk, and so overall those bits are good, and it's a bit of a mixed bag when it comes to sound. So as a package then, I'm giving this one a 7 out of 10 based in 2022, because let's be real here people, this game is still a joy to play with great mechanics and simply breathtaking visuals, and the improvements and patches have definitely helped get this one polished in some areas. The issue is when it was released it promised so much more, and the hype train went in the stratosphere. We've all been there on Tinder, haven't we? We've all swiped a smoking hot 10-10 girl or guy, but then you meet them in the local boozer for a crafty beer and you actually find out they've got a face like a slapped fish, and so then you hate and despise everything they say for the rest of the evening, even though they've got a great personality, because you were promised so much more. Well, this is Cyberpunk, people. It's exactly the same thing. It's way better than what people made it out to be upon release, but it's way worse than what CD Projekt promised us all. And so for me it deserves a place in your collection, especially when I see those crazy sale prices of the game. Cheerio boys and girls, until next time, have a lovely day out. Reggie